To salvage the cosmic balance, Corbin was compelled to court the Guardian of Serenity and failed. When calamity struck, Julian stepped before him, his chest pierced yet seemingly unfazed. He only tightened his grip on Corbin's hand, his gaze filled with a profound affection. Corbin thought he had finally won him over, but Julian's words were a final request, asking that he protect this world and protect his Sarah. Corbin fell silent. So Julian had never believed him. When the end came for everyone, no one was spared. When he opened his eyes again, he was back on the day the Nexus bound itself to him. After a long silence, he asked with genuine feeling if it was possible to choose someone else. His sword had once followed only the path of ascendance, unconcerned with the mortal coil. Now, a Gonglia Nexus had ensnared him. The Nexus explained it had chosen the wrong host. The original was meant to be a young initiate from the Enclave of Whispers named Sarah, a woman with a natural spiritual affinity and a talent for seduction. But the error was made and they had to proceed. Corbin's mission was to make Julian, the guardian of the Sanctuary of Serenity, feel worldly love. If he failed, the balance would shatter and all life would perish. At first, the notion struck him as preposterous. But then unnatural phenomena began to plague the lands, and foul creatures spawned in the shadows. He finally relented. The path of detachment was not the path of apathy. Protecting the living was, in its own way, a form of cultivation. He and Julian were old acquaintances who had often debated philosophy. The Nexus provided a manual detailing numerous methods of courtship. Corbin followed them all, engineering chance encounters and deliberately seeking him out. He recited lines from the book, confessing that his focus wavered whenever Julian was near. Julian would always lower his eyes and state that Corbin was speaking nonsense. Later, goaded by the Nexus, Corbin donned a shockingly sheer robe of silk to seek him out for another debate. The moment Julian's eyes fell upon him, he spun away as if from a venomous snake. The most extreme attempt involved an alchemical potion. That night, Julian's eyes were bloodshot, his breath scorching. The polished river stones of his prayer string cut into his palm, drawing blood. Yet he used his last shred of reason to push Corbin from his native cell. The next day, Corbin went to the sanctuary as usual. As he stepped into the courtyard, he saw the young initiate from the Enclave of Whispers, her face flushed, walking with an unsteady gait from Julian's chamber. He finally understood what fate meant. But for the sake of the world, he could not accept it. He confessed everything to Julian, the Nexus, the peril to the balance. Julian listened quietly, then simply said that Blade Master Corbin was lost in delusion. But the escalating disasters and the world-ending cataclysm proved Corbin's words were no fantasy. A fissure tore across the sky, pouring down a waterfall of corrupting death. The land withered, its essence draining away. Once thriving cities became domains of the dead. In the final battle, Julian suddenly threw himself in front of Corbin, taking a fatal blow. His pristine white robes were instantly soaked in blood. He seemed not to notice, only tightening his grip on Corbin's hand, the quiet depths of his eyes overflowing with a love he could no longer hide. Corbin thought, he finally loves me. It's not too late. But Julian's final words were a plea for Corbin to protect the world, and to protect his Sarah. Corbin was struck speechless. So even then, he refused to believe him. Darkness consumed everything. As his consciousness faded into the void, a familiar mechanical tone sounded. Nexus binding successful. Please confirm target. Guardian Julian of the Sanctuary of Serenity. The memories flooded back. After a long silence, he asked from the heart if he could choose someone else. Since the balance had granted him a second chance, it surely didn't want to see creation repeat its demise. He pressed his brow and said to switch it. Anyone but Julian. The Nexus paused briefly, then beeped. Host request received. Rescanning plane for suitable targets. Scan complete. This plane contains 3 individuals bearing great destiny. First, Guardian Julian of the Sanctuary of Serenity. Second, Citadel Disciple, Caleb. Third, the host. Based on host permissions and mission success probability, the second priority, Caleb, has been locked. While this individual is currently unknown, he carries the mark of a chosen one and his future is limitless. The Nexus protocol supersedes his latent potential, so the balance still prioritizes the host's success. Corbin did not care for these complexities. As long as it wasn't the Guardian who had cost him everything for nothing, anyone would do. He called up Caleb's information. 19 years old, a novice acolyte, a menial worker at the Citadel. As ordinary as could be. In his past life, Corbin vaguely recalled hearing of a prodigy who had risen from obscurity, a memory sparked only because the man later claimed a legendary sword, earning a flicker of Corbin's appreciation. Without further hesitation, he set out for the Citadel. Before the great warding structures, the gatekeepers recognized him, their expressions shifting to one of profound reverence. They bowed their heads hastily in greeting to the Blade Master. His passage drew countless disciples who stopped to stare. It was Blade Master Corbin, visiting the Citadel in person. His presence was as breathtaking as ever. To receive even a moment of his guidance would be the honor of a lifetime. Their gazes were filled with admiration and awe. In the previous life, after the unsavory rumors had spread, those same looks had grown complicated and judgmental. Ignoring the commotion, Corbin followed the Nexus's guidance toward the rear of the mountain. The spiritual essence here was thin, the buildings low and dilapidated. The disciples who had trailed him could not hide their astonishment. Finally, he stopped before the most wretched woodshed of all. A collective, stifled gasp came from the crowd behind him. Several well-dressed disciples looked particularly aghast. Paying them no mind, he pushed open the creaking wooden door. A small, dim space met his eyes. A young man in coarse cloth sat on a low stool. His head bowed as he silently polished a splintered wooden practice sword. He looked up at the sound. The boy was thin and gaunt, looking nothing like his 19 years. Dark, dried blood stained his clothes, and the torn fabric revealed skin mottled with bruises, old and new. An overseer-like figure shoved his way through the crowd, his face a mask of fawning servitude. He bowed deeply, explaining how honored he was that the Blade Master would visit such a filthy place, apologizing that it might offend his sight. Then he turned, his face twisting into a vicious snarl. He roared at the boy, calling him a useless piece of trash and demanding to know why he wasn't on his knees begging for his life instead of just sitting there. He even raised a foot as if to kick him. Corbin's brow furrowed slightly. With a casual flick of his sleeve, he sent the overseer stumbling back several steps with a cry, silencing him in his shock. Corbin's gaze returned to the young man. He asked if he was Caleb. The boy's matted hair hid his eyes. His voice was hoarse as he confirmed that he was. Corbin stepped into the woodshed and stood before him, extending a hand. He asked if Caleb was willing to come with him. The boy's body went rigid. Seeing no response, Corbin recalled the Nexus's note about his destiny and added casually that his bone structure was exceptional, the mark of a gifted swordsman. A murmur of disbelief rippled through the crowd. Exceptional? Caleb? The failure who hadn't advanced in 5 years? The Blade Master had to be mistaken. But these were the words of Corbin himself. How could they be false? Thank heavens I never treated him too harshly, some thought. The boy's lips pressed into a thin line. Suddenly, he yanked back his tattered sleeve and used the relatively clean inner lining to scrub furiously at the grime on his hand, rubbing until the skin was raw. Then, taking a deep breath, he placed his cool hand into Corbin's palm. He would go. His fingers trembled slightly, but his grip was surprisingly firm. His compliance was unexpected. Corbin gave a slight nod and led him out of the woodshed. He announced calmly to the stunned crowd that he was taking the boy. After bringing Caleb back, Corbin didn't rush the seduction. The priority was to nurse him back to health. The spire was suffused with pure essence, and supplemented with potent elixirs. Caleb's frame quickly filled out. The vague lines of his face sharpened, his eyes gaining a youthful intensity. The nexus prompted that Caleb's fated opportunities must not be missed. So Corbin took him traveling, subtly guiding him to the very locations where these convergences would occur. Caleb was a quick study and never needed much explanation. Since his spiritual channels were opened 5 years ago, his power had surged, and his swordsmanship, under Corbin's direct tutelage, had become formidable. Having invested the effort to pave his path, and seeing that Caleb could now stand on his own, Corbin let him venture out for his own trials. He himself would either enter seclusion to refine his own power or handle the affairs of his domain, all while contemplating the next steps of his mission. One day, just after emerging from his retreat, a figure threw their arms open to embrace him. In the past, when Caleb was still growing, the gesture hadn't seemed so awkward. Now, he was significantly taller than Corbin, and his approach cast a shadow that nearly enveloped him. Just before contact was made, Corbin raised a hand and gently blocked him. He told him to stand properly, that he was no longer a child and should conduct himself with more decorum. Over the years, Corbin had granted nearly all of Caleb's requests, so the boy had grown accustomed to showing a familiarity around him that no one else saw. Corbin couldn't help but wonder if Caleb truly saw him as a mentor and father figure. This was far from the goal of his mission. But Caleb protested that he had missed his teacher. He tried to move closer again. Corbin stopped him once more and instructed him to prepare for an upcoming conclave at the Azure Pavilion. The Nexus had mentioned an item there that Caleb needed. In the previous life, Caleb had acquired it anonymously after some struggle. Corbin had also attended that event, but finding it dull, he had preferred the quiet company and philosophical debates with Julian, so he had no memory of Caleb's actions. This time, Caleb would attend as his personal disciple, which should simplify matters. During the conclave, Corbin and Caleb stayed in a quiet courtyard. Their purpose was clear: to acquire a seemingly ordinary charm at the auction. Nothing else mattered. In his spare moments, Corbin habitually tested Caleb's knowledge. In the courtyard, Caleb stood tall, answering Corbin's complex questions on sword theory with ease and demonstrating the forms with flawless precision. Seeing him excel brought Corbin a sense of satisfaction, even a strange pang of regret. Had they met sooner, he might have genuinely taken on a worthy apprentice. Even without the mission, Caleb's character and talent were deserving of cultivation. Caleb's voice pulled Corbin from his thoughts. He had approached at some point and was now looking down at him. He asked if something was wrong, if he had done something incorrectly. Corbin noncommittally snapped off a branch from a plum tree and suggested a test of his practical skills. Caleb's expression sharpened as he immediately fell into a fighting stance. As their shadows danced, Corbin used no spiritual essence, relying purely on swordsmanship. Caleb's progress was remarkable, his attacks fierce yet disciplined. After several exchanges, Corbin tapped his wrist with the plum branch and declared his performance acceptable. Caleb sheathed his sword and almost instantly closed the distance, his arm naturally wrapping around Corbin's waist. His breath came in soft pants, his voice filled with undisguised admiration for his teacher's incredible skill. He wondered aloud how long it would take for him to ever reach a fraction of that level. It seemed this clingy habit was here to stay. Corbin felt a sense of helplessness. As he was about to push him away as usual, the Nexus suddenly chimed in, declaring it a perfect opportunity. According to the manual, moderate physical intimacy could effectively close the distance and increase the target's affection. The Nexus urged him to embrace him back, to kiss him. Corbin froze. He remembered all the schemes he had used on Julian in his past life, only to lose everything. He hesitated. The Nexus grew more insistent, telling him not to wait, to strike while the iron was hot. Meeting Caleb's clear, trusting eyes, Corbin closed his own. Fine. Steeling himself, he turned his head slightly, his lips brushing against Caleb's cheek in a touch that was there and gone in an instant. The tall body went rigid. Then, Caleb's fair face flushed a deep crimson, a blush that spread down his neck and to the tips of his ears. As if burned, he instantly released his hold and stumbled back 2 steps, his eyes darting around in a panic, refusing to look at Corbin. He stammered his teacher's title. See, Corbin thought. Utterly useless. It might even have the opposite effect. This nexus was as unreliable as ever, and it had made him do something so foolish. He suppressed the strange knot in his chest, and his expression returned to its usual placid state. He stated that the auction was about to begin and they should go, then walked out of the courtyard without another look at the flustered young man. The hall was already filled with people. From the moment they entered, a particular gaze seemed to follow them. At first, Corbin ignored it, but its persistence began to wear on his patience. He looked up and met a pair of eyes as still as an ancient well. In that same instant, he saw the vibrant figure beside Julian. It was Sarah. Strange. According to the trajectory of the past life, they shouldn't have had such a clear connection at this point. Could it be that he, too? Corbin dismissed the thought. Whether he had or not was irrelevant now. He coolly withdrew his gaze and led Caleb to their seats. The auction was long and tedious. Only toward the end was the petrified silverwood charm presented. The auctioneer described its origins as unknown, but noted its exquisite craftsmanship and elegant form, suggesting it was a fine curiosity. As expected, the crowd's reaction was lukewarm. Such decorative trinkets were rarely valued in their world. Corbin opened the bidding at 10,000 essence crystals, assuming it would be an easy win. But a clear, calm voice from across the hall countered with 100,000. A small stir went through the hall. In past years, the Guardian had never participated in auctions. Corbin, too, was surprised but raised the bid. It soon became a duel between them, the price climbing to a staggering level. Corbin frowned slightly and looked at Julian again, only to see Sarah staring at the charm with great interest. So that was it. She wanted it. But this was the one thing he couldn't let her have. Gritting his teeth at the cost, he announced a bid of 1 million. This time, even Caleb looked at him with surprise. Corbin quietly explained it away as a belated gift for his apprenticeship. Perhaps the price had far exceeded the charm's actual worth, because the other side finally fell silent. Corbin breathed a quiet sigh of relief. Once he had the charm, he handed it to Caleb and they rose to leave. As they passed through a corridor, snippets of a hushed conversation reached them. Someone wondered why the Guardian was with a woman from the Enclave of Whispers, calling it improper. Another had heard that the Guardian had been making many exceptions for that temptress lately, fearing his mind had been ensnared. That must be why Blade Master Corbin had grown distant from him, having seen the truth long ago. The gossip took a turn, with someone noting the coincidence that just as the Guardian took up with her, the Blade Master brought that young prodigy back from the Citadel. The speculation grew wilder, even implicating Corbin. He had no interest in arguing with them. Just as he was about to walk away, Caleb's cold voice cut in, reprimanding them for speaking ill of their betters and asking if this was how they cultivated their minds. Seeing Corbin there, the gossipers' faces paled, and they fell silent. Corbin reached out to pull Caleb away, but a familiar voice sounded from behind them. Corbin paused. Julian was standing a few paces away, his robes like snow, the crimson figure beside him appearing all the more striking. Corbin felt there was nothing left to say between them. He offered only a slight nod without meeting Julian's eyes, then took Caleb's hand and left the place of contention without a backward glance. Back at the spire, Corbin instructed Caleb to study the charm on his own and was about to enter his private sanctuary for Medion. Just as he stepped inside, an object shot through the air toward him. It was a leaf from a silver birch, verdant and shimmering with a sacred light. A line of slender script slowly materialized upon it, stating that it had been too long since their last debate and that he hoped for a meeting. It was the first time Julian had ever sought him out, in this life or the last. Corbin stared at it for a moment before crushing the leaf to dust. However, the birch leaves began to appear every few days, their messages largely the same, disturbing his peace. After more than a month of this, Corbin finally conceded. Upon returning to the Sanctuary of Serenity, he didn't go directly to the silver birch tree. Instead, he wandered slowly through the grounds. He had waited for Julian often enough in his past life. Letting him wait for a change was only fair. Most of the monks recognized him and greeted him with respectful bows. He had always liked the tranquility of this place. But he recalled how his single-minded pursuit of the mission had led him to increasingly outrageous behavior. Though they had never spoken ill of him, the growing distance and disapproval in their eyes had been clear. It was his fault, indefensible. After his mind had wandered, he finally arrived at the Madion courtyard. The canopy of the silver birch was like a cloud, and Julian sat alone on a stone bench beneath it. Sarah was not with him. 2 cups of tea were already prepared on the table, steam curling gently into the air. The scene was identical to the start of countless debates in his memory, yet separated by the gulf of death, it felt distant. He sat down and got straight to the point, stating that he was not in the mood for debate and assumed Julian's repeated invitations were for another reason. Julian was silent for a moment, then looked up, his gaze flickering. He said that he had been having a recurring dream. His voice was slow and deliberate as he recounted the absurd, heavy vision, the endless disasters, the broken and dying lands. And in the dream, Blade Master Corbin's declaration that it was a sign of the balance collapsing. So he had been reborn too. Corbin coolly added that at the time, the Guardian had also dismissed his words as nonsense. The knuckles of the hand Julian rested on his prayer stones went white. He finally lowered his eyes. He admitted that his past judgment had been a mistake and that he had wronged the Blade Master. He asked if, should the dream prove true for the sake of all life, they could not. Corbin took a sip of the now-cool tea and cut him off. He assured him that it was fine, and that in this life, the Guardian need not have such concerns. Julian's eyes narrowed slightly as he asked what he meant. Corbin turned to leave, but his sleeve was abruptly pulled taut. The next instant, Julian released it as if burned by holy fire, clasping his hands and murmuring a prayer. Corbin frowned, asking why he insisted when it no longer concerned him. Julian didn't move, as if determined to have an answer. Not wanting to prolong the conversation, Corbin replied curtly that this time, it was someone else. Julian fell silent. The dappled shadows of the leaves played across his face, his expression unreadable. As Corbin took a step, the clean scent of incense washed over him from behind, followed by Julian's low question. The Blade Master followed the path of detachment. He began, questioning why such an emotional trial, such a karmic entanglement, would fall to him. It defied the natural order. For a moment, Corbin was speechless. He found it absurd as well. He nodded in agreement, acknowledging the truth in his words. Fortunately, he added, he was not required to feel anything. Julian repeated the words, his voice growing deeper. If he was not required to feel, then why, in the past life, did he go to such lengths? Corbin explained it was a requirement of the Nexus. Julian pressed on, asking why it had been him. Corbin replied that it was the Nexus's choice. And if it had chosen another, Julian asked, would he have done the same? Corbin confirmed that it was his duty. A long silence stretched behind him. Suddenly, a hand with prominent veins clamped onto his waist, spinning him around. Julian stared down at him, his breathing slightly ragged, his throat moving. He did not know what this nexus was that Corbin spoke of, but he knew what Corbin's actions had looked like to others, and to him, Corbin interrupted, looking up to meet his gaze. Since the Guardian had achieved his heart's desire in this life and found his love, Corbin offered his congratulations. As for everything else, there was nothing more to say. The customary peace in Julian's aura shattered. He closed his eyes for a long moment. When he opened them again, a faint redness rimmed them, and his voice was raw. His relationship with Sarah was not what Corbin imagined. He said nothing. Julian seemed to struggle internally before continuing, his words strained. That night, after he had cast Corbin out, his spiritual essence had spiraled out of control. His mind descended into chaos. Someone had snuck in. He had mistaken her for Corbin returned. He paused, his voice sinking lower. By the time he realized his mistake, it was too late. That was a consequence he had to bear alone. Furthermore, her constitution was special, and her nature simple and timid. She was often coveted and bullied. That was why he had taken her under his protection. Corbin listened quietly. It seemed the potion had been stronger than he thought. Coupled with the importance of a guardian's vital energy, it was no wonder Julian felt such guilt. But the past was gone like smoke. He gathered his thoughts and said calmly that in any case, he would not pester him as he had before. The guardian could rest easy. If there was nothing else, he would take his leave. Returning to the spire, Corbin entered a period of secluded reflection, prompted by Julian's reminder about his path of detachment. He finally realized his mistake. For someone on a path of such cold rationality, forcing displays of affection was utterly incongruous and laughable. And the Nexus, that idiotic thing, had never once pointed it out. As he was deep in thought, an elder steward reported that a large, anonymous deposit of essence crystals had recently appeared in the spire's vaults. 1 million precisely, the exact amount he had spent on the Silverwood charm. His mood lifted slightly, and he emerged from his sanctuary to find Caleb. His chambers were empty. It was only as he was turning to leave that he encountered the travel-worn figure on the mountain path. The first sight of him made Corbin's brow instinctively furrow. He asked why he was so careless again. It was strange. Caleb's power was clearly advancing at a rapid pace. Yet every time he returned from a journey, he was covered in new injuries. Seeing Corbin's displeasure, Caleb expertly closed the distance, a faint scent of blood still clinging to him. He wrapped his arms around Corbin's waist, rested his chin on his shoulder, and mumbled that it hurt. Before Corbin could speak, he added in a low voice that it was his own fault for being unskilled, that he would always need his teacher's diligent guidance to improve. Corbin's body tensed, but he eventually relaxed and didn't push him away. Fine. A little closeness was better than distance. Leading him back to his sanctuary, Corbin ordered him to remove his shirt. When he saw the savage wounds crisscrossing the lean, powerful torso and sensed the chaotic essence within, his expression turned grim. This was no ordinary training mission. He focused his own essence, slowly channeling it into Caleb's body to soothe the internal damage, then gave him a rare medicinal pill. Once Caleb's breathing stabilized, he asked in a cold tone where he had been to get into such a state. Sweat beaded on Caleb's brow, but his eyes were bright and feverish. He reported that he had been to the graveyard of ancients in the northern wastes. Corbin's heart skipped a beat. That was a perilous land Caleb's destiny was not supposed to lead him to until much later. How had he gone so early? Before he could ponder it further, Caleb presented an object like a treasured gift. It was a sword. The blade was archaic, its body shimmering with a dark, ethereal light. Merely resting in his palm, it exuded a terrifying, ancient power. Caleb's face was pale, but his lips were curved in a smile as he offered the sword. He felt this blade suited his teacher best. He knew Corbin already had a soul-bound weapon, but he thought having another to appreciate couldn't hurt. Corbin recalled the rumors from his past life. A renowned warrior had obtained a divine sword from some forgotten ruin. That warrior had been Caleb, and the sword was surely this one. Doubts swirled in his mind. The timing was wrong, and the gesture itself was strange. When he had first found Caleb, he was just a weak, bullied menial. He had grown for years under Corbin's watch. When had he developed such skill and cunning? More than that, there was an unnameable feeling. Caleb's devotion seemed to exceed normal bounds. To so casually give away a divine artifact that could incite wars. After a moment of contemplation, Corbin slowly pushed the sword back toward him. He noted that the sword spirit was already resonating with Caleb's own essence. making it a perfect choice for his primary weapon. But the sight of Caleb's injuries sparked an inexplicable irritation. His thumb pressed, not gently, on the edge of a fresh wound. He demanded a clear explanation of how he had learned of the graveyard and how he had obtained the sword. Caleb let out a muffled grunt of pain, his eyes instantly welling up. But instead of pulling away, he pressed closer. His voice was laced with grievance as he recounted hearing of the secret place, the difficult infiltration, the near-death struggle, and the final retrieval of the ancient blade. His words were earnest, the details exhaustive, with no hint of falsehood. He finished in the same pleading tone, asking why his teacher was angry. Did he not like the sword? Or was he just annoyed that Caleb had caused him trouble again? Meeting those tear-filled eyes, Corbin's suspicions temporarily receded. He then remembered the stalled mission progress. He hesitated for a second before his tone softened slightly. He reminded Caleb to have more respect for his own body, and to not be so reckless again. Seeing Caleb's expression about to revert to one of pure, childlike adoration, Corbin leaned in and quickly kissed the reddened tip of his ear. He added in a low voice that he would worry. Caleb froze completely. The expected panicked retreat didn't happen. After a brief pause, the arms around Corbin's waist tightened abruptly. He lowered his head, his hot lips brushing almost imperceptibly against the side of Corbin's neck. His voice was a raw rasp. What did his teacher mean by this? First that time and now this. Corbin hadn't anticipated this reaction and was momentarily stunned. Caleb pulled back slightly, his intense gaze still locked on him. If his teacher wouldn't answer, he had other questions. Why had he chosen him as his disciple in the first place? Back then, he was so insignificant, a failure in everyone's eyes. He asked, his words deliberate, if his teacher had known him before. There were too many questions. Corbin evaded the important ones, choosing the most trivial to answer. He said he had a good eye for talent. But Caleb was relentless. He nuzzled his neck, persisting in a sticky sweet voice about why his teacher had kissed him, both last time and this time. Corbin was silent for a moment before retorting that if he was so upset, he could kiss him back. The words had barely left his mouth when Caleb immediately ducked his head, his warm lips quickly pressing against the side of Corbin's face. He whispered with a low laugh that his teacher had said it himself, so he couldn't take it back. Before Corbin could react, his face was gently cupped, and a cool kiss landed on the bridge of his nose. Through it all, Corbin remained still, passively accepting. He could feel the soft warmth of Caleb's lips, once, then again, from his forehead to his neck, a faint, tickling sensation. Beyond that, his own emotions remained undisturbed. After he finished, Caleb pulled back a little, his eyes shining as he stared intently at Corbin's face. But a moment later, the light in them dimmed. He slumped against Corbin's shoulder as if deflated. He asked if his teacher followed the path of detachment. Corbin confirmed it. Caleb wondered why, of all the paths in the world, his teacher, so devoted to the sword, would choose this one. Corbin answered honestly that it was the fastest path to power. Caleb seemed to mull this over, his eyes downcast as he murmured that it made sense. But it seemed, he added, that this path wasn't quite right for him. Corbin considered the meaning behind his words and simply agreed, observing that Caleb's restless nature was indeed unsuited for such quiet contemplation. He told him to rest and heal there. He let him stay partly because the essence in his sanctuary was richer and would aid his recovery, and partly because perhaps their proximity would benefit the mission. Once his injuries had healed, Caleb brought up the topic of venturing out again. Corbin initially refused but couldn't withstand his days of soft-spoken pleas. Caleb would argue that only through more trials could he one day stand on his own, like his teacher. He would rub his head against Corbin's, his tone sly, adding that even if he got hurt, he still had his teacher to fix him. Corbin eventually relented. As a precaution, he gave him a jade talisman containing a sliver of his own spiritual power. He told him it could block a single fatal blow in a crisis. Caleb took it, his thumb gently caressing its surface before carefully placing it inside his robes. He promised to treasure what his teacher had given him. Just before leaving, he stole a quick kiss on Corbin's cheek. He told him how good his teacher was to him, and then he was gone. Only after his figure had completely vanished did Corbin raise a hand to touch the lingering warmth on his skin. Perhaps this mission had a chance after all. Caleb was gone for several months. One day, sensing a ripple in the wards around his domain, Corbin assumed he had finally returned. But when he looked up, the figure stepping into his courtyard made him pause. It was Julian. He was still dressed in his snow-white robes, his presence even colder than the frost of the spire. Corbin's tone was flat as he asked his business. Julian's gaze fell upon him, and he stated that he had come for a debate. In the past, Corbin had always been the one to seek him out at the sanctuary. Julian was a guardian, and his understanding of philosophy was indeed superior. But after 2 lifetimes, Corbin had lost interest. He claimed his mind was unsettled and unsuitable for deep discussion, suggesting another day. Julian didn't leave. He stood in silence for a moment before speaking suddenly. If the obsession was gone, he asked, why was there still a wall between them? Corbin said nothing, but he gestured to the stone bench opposite him and poured a cup of tea, pushing it across. He invited him to sit. In their old debates, Corbin usually asked the questions and Julian answered. Today, Corbin had no desire to speak, and Julian didn't press him. He began the conversation himself, musing that detachment did not mean one was made of wood or stone, that even a resolute mind required tempering. He asked how one should act when faced with external disturbances and tangled emotions. They began to discuss the great principles, every word profound. But halfway through, Julian, contrary to his usual nature, began to repeatedly challenge Corbin's views. His words were calm, but they held an unyielding stubbornness. The atmosphere grew tense. Corbin sensed this debate had lost its original purpose. He poured the rest of his tea onto the stone beside him and announced that their discussion was over for the day. Julian's fingers paused on his prayer stones. Just as Corbin stood to see him out, Julian rose as well. He suddenly reached out, his fingertips gently brushing Corbin's temple to pluck away a tiny bamboo leaf that had fallen there. He remarked that in their past debates, Bodhi leaves had often fallen on his shoulders and hair. His voice was low, his gaze fixed on the speck of green on his finger. It had seemed to him then that they were particularly fond of Corbin. Corbin stepped away, his tone distant, saying he didn't remember. Just then, the wards rippled again. When the disturbance settled, the figure that appeared was finally Caleb. His face was lit with an open, joyful smile, but the moment his eyes fell on the person beside Corbin, his expression turned to ice. He strode over in a few quick steps, subtly wedged himself between Corbin and Julian, and wrapped an arm possessively around Corbin's shoulders, pulling him into a tight embrace. He announced his return, burying his face in Corbin's neck and mumbling in a plaintive voice how much he'd missed him. This behavior was highly inappropriate in front of an outsider. Corbin ordered him to let go. Caleb pretended not to hear, instead lifting his face, his eyes shining. He declared proudly that he hadn't gotten a single scratch this time, that he was perfectly clean, and had even scented himself with white lotus, his teacher's favorite fragrance. He asked if he smelled good and if his teacher would praise him. Corbin, trapped, could only offer a perfunctory compliment. Just as he was about to push him away, Caleb suddenly ducked his head, and his soft, fragrant lips pressed directly against the corner of Corbin's mouth. Corbin's body went rigid, but Caleb grew bolder, nuzzling his cheek again, his eyes sliding sideways to the silent Julian. He remarked that his teacher never used to push him away, wondering if it was because of the annoying bald monk's presence. Before Corbin could react, he continued in a rapid-fire torrent, questioning why some monks wouldn't stay in their temples chanting, instead wandering into a place of warriors like the spire, offending everyone's eyes. Corbin was stunned by this sharp-tongued side of Caleb. He cut him off sharply, speaking his name. He reminded him that regardless of anything, Julian held a respected position and would not be spoken to with such disrespect, even if Julian's own clear mind might not hold it against him. Called out by name, Caleb subsided slightly, but he remained glued to Corbin's side, refusing to budge. With a headache, Corbin accepted the situation and turned to say something to Julian to smooth things over, only to meet a pair of eyes that were no longer calm. Julian's gaze was dark and turbulent, like a tarnished mirror reflecting a deep and stormy emotion. He remarked on the profound bond between the Blade Master and his disciple. Caleb sneered, immediately retorting that his relationship with his teacher was no business of an outsider's. He questioned what a guardian was doing meddling with another's disciple instead of saving the world. As he spoke, he rubbed his head against Corbin's hair, adding that he and his teacher knew how they felt about each other. The knuckles of Julian's hand, clutching his prayer stones, turned white. Ignoring Caleb, he looked only at Corbin, his voice raw. He asked if Corbin's path of detachment was truly impartial and unfeeling, or if his philosophy made exceptions for certain people. Corbin was tired of the pointless argument. He replied coldly that how he cultivated his path, and with whom, was his business alone and not the guardian's concern. At least Caleb, he added, did not presume to judge him and cause him embarrassment. The moment the words were spoken, there was a soft snap, followed by a series of sharp cracks. The cord of the prayer string Julian had carried for countless years suddenly broke. He stood frozen, staring at the scattered beads, his face paling for an instant. Before Corbin could say more, he turned abruptly and walked away, his departure almost a desperate flight, and vanished beyond the wards. Caleb wrapped his arms around him again, asking what his teacher was thinking. His tone was musing as he remarked that he hadn't realized his teacher and the guardian had such a history. Corbin had no wish to discuss it and said only that it was an old matter, not worth mentioning. Caleb gave a low laugh, agreeing not to speak of it. He then took several luminous, fragrant fruits from his storage ring, saying he'd found them by chance and that they were delicious. He encouraged his teacher to try one. Having cultivated for so long, Corbin had little interest in food, but he watched as Caleb took one and bit into it himself. He picked one up. The juice was plentiful, the flesh sweet and refreshing. Just as he was about to praise it, a heavy wave of exhaustion washed over him without. Even circulating his spiritual essence became sluggish. A cultivator should not. His last sensation was falling into a familiar, warm embrace. When he awoke, his surroundings were completely alien. The hall was opulent, the furnishings extravagant. The spiritual essence was so thick it was nearly tangible, yet it was like watching a fire from across a river, impossible to absorb. His body was limp and weak. The slightest movement produced the crisp clink of metal from beneath him. Looking down, he saw that his wrists and ankles were bound by several fine chains, their other ends vanishing into the void. As his heart sank, footsteps approached. Caleb appeared at the entrance of the hall, walking slowly toward him, the same harmless, gentle smile on his face. Corbin understood instantly. It was the fruit. His voice, weak but cold, asked Caleb what he thought he was doing. Caleb ignored the question, walking to the bedside and pulling him into a tight embrace without a word, letting out a sigh of contentment. He explained that he simply thought his teacher was tired from constant worry, and that this quiet place was perfect for a good rest. He asked if his teacher didn't like it here. His hot fingertips traced the chain on Corbin's wrist, sending a shiver through him. Caleb explained that this little world was built with the help of the silverwood charm his teacher had given him. Every detail had been arranged by him personally, designed to perfectly suit Corbin. Corbin tried to circulate his essence, but it was like dropping a stone into the ocean. He ordered him to let go. At the same time, he called for the Nexus in his mind. The Nexus reported that the situation was indeed beyond normal parameters. but that the host was in no immediate danger. Corbin demanded to know what was happening, what Caleb's affection level was, why there had been no. The Nexus admitted that the target Caleb's affection data had been unstable and unreadable from the very beginning. Given its generally high level, it had previously been dismissed as a system compatibility issue. Now, it seemed more likely that it was being actively shielded by some other power. Corbin almost let out a cold laugh. This idiotic system had been sabotaging him from the start. Caleb refused with a smile, his fingers toying with a lock of Corbin's hair. What good would letting go do? Would it be so his teacher could go find that bald monk again? Or to give someone else a chance? He suddenly leaned in close, his gaze as deep as a bottomless pool. As their breaths mingled, he asked the same question again. His teacher still hadn't answered why he had chosen him. Before Corbin could invent an excuse, Caleb's voice dropped lower. That day, his ribs had just been broken by his fellow disciples. He had been covered in blood and filth, expecting another miserable day of waiting for his wounds to heal before returning to the endless chores. And then he came. The light on the Citadel's mountain was so bright, but it seemed to be absorbed by Corbin's presence. He had walked in and extended a hand, like a god from the heavens who had, by chance, finally noticed the dust mote that was him. He paused, the emotion in his eyes churning, and asked with fierce insistence, if it hadn't been for the so-called Nexus, would his teacher have even seen him? The blood in Corbin's veins froze. As if reading his mind, Caleb let out a low laugh. He asked if his teacher was surprised, adding that he knew far more than that. His hot fingertips traced the chains, his tone light, but every word struck like thunder. Did his teacher know why the Nexus protocol could override his own destiny and become the key to maintaining the world's balance? Corbin's throat was tight. He remained silent, his mind reeling. Because Caleb explained, in the life before the last, he had personally killed the chosen one of that era, the one who held the world's destiny. The balance had shattered because of it. In the last life, destiny had fallen to him. He had gotten his own so-called chosen one system, but he had also learned of the Nexus and its connection to the world's survival. He had no choice. He had even tried to act in secret, to clear the path for Corbin by getting rid of that annoying initiate from the Enclave of Whispers. But the Guardian had protected her too well. Corbin's heart jolted. He met Caleb's eyes, now completely stripped of their disguise, revealing only darkness. But finally, it was his turn. In the life before the last, he was just a speck of dust, listening to the legends of Blade Master Corbin, whose sword light chilled 19 continents, whose resolve was unshakable, a figure on a pedestal for all to admire. Back then, he had thought how wonderful it would be to become someone like him. His fingertips slid slowly down, tracing Corbin's cheek. Life after life, he had watched him, chased him, getting closer and closer, yet growing more and more discontent. Until this life, Corbin had seen him. He had been good to him, taught him, healed him, protected him from disaster, even kissed him. He asked if Corbin knew he could have fought for those fated opportunities himself, even if it meant being battered and bruised. But Corbin had handed them to him, along with a warmth he had never dared to hope for. Amidst his shock, Corbin seized on the key point. If he knew everything, loving him should have been enough. Why go to such lengths? Caleb's smile faded, his eyes filled with a raw obsession. Because his teacher's path of detachment was not yet broken. His heart was like ice, while Caleb was consumed by love. It wasn't fair. Corbin told him he was insane. Hearing this, Caleb let out another muffled laugh. So all the kindness his teacher had shown him was just... He trailed off. When he spoke again, his voice had returned to a raw calm. He wasn't insane. His teacher was the naive one. Having entered this game of sentiment, did he really think he could walk away unscathed? Corbin quickly realized Caleb was serious. He had endless ways to keep him imprisoned in this place day and night. Yet when he came, he would often just bury his face in Corbin's embrace and speak of trivial things. some new curiosity in the outside world, or a comical incident at one of the other orders. His tone was gentle, as if he were still the devoted, obedient disciple. But sometimes, without, he would bite his lip, licking at the skin until it was marked with his scent. Then ask in a hoarse voice how his teacher had seduced that bald monk in the last life. Had he been this compliant then, letting him do as he pleased? Corbin was mostly silent, partly in resignation. Seducing him was the goal, after all, and he could tolerate this level of contact. But occasionally, in a moment of passion, Caleb would kiss him too hard, leaving a mark. Then he would stop abruptly as if stung, his gaze turning venomous as he stared at Corbin. He would let out a cold laugh and turn and leave without a backward glance. Time passed in this space without day or night. Perhaps years went by. Corbin was constantly, secretly trying to find any possible chance of escape. But Caleb's cunning was far beyond his expectations. This place was impregnable. At some point, the frequency of his visits decreased. But whenever he appeared, he was clingier than before, his posture more submissive. He would approach cautiously, bringing with him the clean scent of lotus. But whenever Corbin thought his attitude had softened and proposed leaving, Caleb would instantly let go, a smile that didn't reach his eyes on his face, and gently refuse. Not yet. His teacher didn't have him in his heart yet. And if it was empty, there was no reason to leave. The air grew heavy and stagnant. It had been a long time since his last visit. Corbin was mating, trying to use his detached mind to see through the illusion, when the entrance finally rippled with energy. He opened his eyes. Caleb appeared at the doorway, but his state was clearly wrong. His face was flushed with an unnatural heat. His usually steady aura was chaotic, and the essence around him was on the verge of losing control. Corbin frowned, a vague sense of familiarity in the scene. Before he could place it, Caleb had stumbled closer, his tall frame burning hot, leaning almost all his weight on him. He rasped that he was in pain. Corbin instinctively placed a hand on his forehead. It was scorching. He asked what had happened, if he had been poisoned in some ruin again. Caleb let out a low laugh, his lips brushing against Corbin's. It wasn't a ruin. He had taken the poison himself. It was the same one his teacher had used on Julian. Corbin's fingers twitched. He frowned. Caleb had already seized his waist, pressing him closer, his breath hot. Since his teacher was supposed to be seducing him, now was the time to let him do as he pleased. Corbin didn't answer. He simply looked down at the hand clamped on his waist, then looked away. For the mission, some sacrifices were necessary. However, the expected advance didn't come. Caleb stopped, his breathing heavy, his chest heaving. He suddenly buried his head in Corbin's neck, his voice trembling slightly. His teacher was doing it again. Seeing him struggle like this, the weariness that had been accumulating for so long finally surfaced. When would this entanglement ever end? He told him to come closer. Caleb's expression was unreadable, but he slowly leaned in as instructed. This was the moment. Corbin suddenly tilted his head up and took the initiative, kissing his hot, slightly parted lips. The man above him went rigid. The next second, he shoved Corbin away violently, stumbling backward until he hit a wall. He turned his back immediately, his shoulders shaking slightly, his breathing ragged. After a long time, he finally spoke, his voice hoarse. His teacher walked the path of detachment, he said, to witness the laws of the universe, to protect all life. He was unmoved by personal feeling, unswayed by external things. It was, he supposed, in line with the will of the balance. The collapse of the world the Nexus spoke of, that was why his teacher was willing to be trapped here, even to stoop so low. He paused for a long time before asking in a near whisper, then, was he, Caleb, also one of the lives to be protected? Corbin took this as a sign of acceptance of his true purpose and answered seriously. He confirmed that the Nexus spoke the truth. When the world falls, no one is spared, not even them. A few seconds of dead silence. Caleb said nothing more. The next moment, a wave of energy passed, and his figure vanished completely from the pocket dimension. After his hurried departure that day, he never returned. The space seemed utterly forgotten. Then, one moment, the surrounding essence began to drain away rapidly. The chains on his limbs shattered, dissolving into motes of light. A strange weight settled in his chest. Finding himself back in Caleb's sanctuary at the spire, Corbin saw that the silverwood charm behind him was covered in cracks, its light extinguished. A terrible premonition seized him. He rushed out of the chamber without hesitation. The familiar scent of decay hit him. The sky was dark. Deathly energy and twisted abominations raged not far away. It was the precursor to the collapse of the balance, just like the last time, though not yet as advanced. There was still a chance. The spire's defensive wards were barely holding. When the disciples saw him emerge, it was as if they had found their savior. Some were so overcome with emotion they began to sob, crying out that their leader had finally returned. He had no time for questions. He quickly reinforced the wards, organized the domain's defenses, and sent aid to the smaller, struggling orders nearby. Once a semblance of order was restored, his gaze swept over the crowd, his voice cold and hard. Where was Caleb? A young disciple's eyes instantly reddened. He pointed to the distance, his voice choked with tears, explaining that 3 days ago, Caleb had taken his sword and insisted on going to the graveyard of ancients. They couldn't stop him. The graveyard of ancients. The very place he had died in his last life. Without a second thought, Corbin transformed into a streak of sword light and shot across the sky. The land there had been reduced to scorched earth, the very space around it warped. The monks of the Sanctuary of Serenity had formed a defensive circle, their bodies a bastion of light against the encroaching darkness. Julian was among them, his robes stained with dust, his face grim. When he saw Corbin, his lips moved as if to speak. Corbin had no time for him. His sword energy shot out like a rainbow, clearing the demonic creatures for miles around. Then he demanded to know where Caleb was. Julian informed him that he had gone deep into the battlefield. Corbin focused his senses and caught a faint trace of a familiar essence. He plunged into the chaos. Illusion after illusion rose to meet him. The first was the dilapidated woodshed at the Citadel. A small, thin boy cowered in a corner, lifting his young face, his eyes timid yet hopeful, asking in a small voice if the great master truly meant to take him. He held out a hand covered in chilblains and grime. Corbin didn't pause. The illusion shattered. The second was the quiet courtyard after the Azure Pavilion conclave. A tall young man stood with a sword, his eyes smiling. He asked his teacher to critique a new form he had learned. The sword light passed, and the image dissolved. The third was inside the silverwood charm itself. The tall figure embraced him tightly from behind, his chin resting on Corbin's head, his voice a low, seductive murmur. "Stay here with me, teacher. For eternity. The outside world is full of suffering. What does it have to do with us?" Corbin closed his eyes and severed the false warmth. One after another, the illusions were manifestations of Caleb's obsession. Sometimes humble, sometimes devoted, sometimes twisted into madness. Corbin broke them all with his unwavering sword heart, his steps never faltering. He finally reached the heart of the battlefield, his eyes searching frantically. A faint whisper came from deep within the ruins. "Teacher." Corbin spun around, rushing toward the sound. He found Caleb under a pile of rubble, leaning against a shattered boulder, his breathing shallow. Only his eyes were still fixed on Corbin. For a rare moment, Corbin lost his composure, rushing forward to support him. Caleb leaned into his embrace, just as he had countless times before. His breath was so faint it was nearly inaudible. His teacher, he whispered, really was so good. Corbin's lips pressed into a thin line, suppressing the turbulent emotions in his chest, as he poured a steady stream of pure essence into Caleb's body. trying to mend his shattered spiritual channels. Caleb smiled faintly and laid a hand over Corbin's trembling ones, stopping him. He told his teacher that in the life before the last, he could only look at him as one looks at the stars, untouchable. In the last life, watching him waste his efforts on another had been an agony of unrequited longing. In this life, to be personally taught by him, to have spent so many years by his side, had been the greatest blessing of his entire existence. Just then, the Nexus's tone sounded in his mind. Drip. Target Caleb's affection level achieved. Source of cosmic imbalance has been neutralized. World origin is beginning self-repair. World-saving mission complete. Success. An indescribable emotion surged through him. He opened his mouth to speak, but Caleb cut him off softly. His teacher had said he didn't like it when he got hurt. That wasn't a lie, was it? No, Corbin answered immediately. So be good. Your training isn't even complete. Caleb smiled at that. He apologized. The balance had first been broken because of his selfish desires. It was only right that he be the one to repay the debt. The path of detachment his teacher walked, he said, was transcendent and impartial. It was good. The moment his words ended, the world hummed. The raging deathly energy and the fissures in the sky began to visibly heal. The dissipated essence started to reconverge. And Caleb's body began to dissolve into motes of light, slipping through his fingers, impossible to hold. A cold, mechanical voice sounded again. Warning. Large-scale injection of planar origin detected. The balance is undergoing forced repair. Re-anchoring world timeline. Repair protocol engaged. Balance repair complete. The weight in his arms vanished. That warmth completely gone. Scattered into the world, leaving no trace. A jade talisman fell silently. It was the one he had given him, the one containing a sliver of his own power. It was perfectly intact, its edges worn smooth from constant handling. It was dusty, but he could still feel a faint trace of Caleb's warmth. He had kept it all this time and never used it. Something cold and unfamiliar traced a path down his cheek. He lifted a hand and touched a strange wetness. The unnameable emotion inside him finally broke like a dam, shattering the last barrier before his enlightened mind. The path of detachment was not the absence of feeling, but the clear sight of all things, viewing creation as one. The joys of the living, the sorrows of the living, love and hate, greed and obsession, all were part of the balance's function. He stood in the now silent ruins, feeling his own path reach its perfect, paradoxical completion. The laws of the universe resonated with him as never before. His sword energy shot to the heavens, drawing down celestial thunder and a cascade of iridescent light. In the distance, Julian seemed to sense it and turned to look back. But Corbin no longer cared. He turned and stepped into the light of ascension. In the 6 months since the calamity, the small order at the foot of the mountain was slowly rebuilding. Alara sat on a broken wall, head down, secretly wiping away tears. The senior sister who used to sneak her sweets and quietly correct her training forms hadn't survived the darkest days. Something was suddenly popped into her mouth. A faint sweetness spread. Alara looked up, her eyes blurry with tears. It was the lead disciple. She asked if Old Man Miller from the town gate had started selling his candies again. He told her it was medicine. Her senior brother ruffled her hair, his eyes gentle. The healers from the Valley of Whispering Reeds had added some licorice root, he explained, to make it less bitter for the children. Alara chewed obediently, but it only brought back more memories of her sister, and her eyes welled up again. The senior brother sighed and told her not to cry. He sat beside her, looking at their fellow disciples raising new buildings in the distance. He said her sister wouldn't have wanted her to be sad all the time. Those who survived had to look forward. The world itself was slowly healing. Alara sniffled, trying to hold back her tears. Her brother took her hand and said he would take her to see the newly established market to lift her spirits. The new market was built on the ruins of the old town. It was simple but full of life. They rested at a tea stall, listening to the conversations around them. The topic soon turned to the great figures who had stood against the cataclysm. Someone asked if they had heard that the guardian from the Sanctuary of Serenity had left a few days ago. Another expressed his shock, asking why. A man who looked like a merchant lowered his voice. The 1,000-year-old silver birch at the sanctuary, he said, had lost all its leaves overnight. The guardian had declared that his mirror of truth was clouded, his heart unquiet. He was leaving to undertake a pilgrimage of hardship, to find some true shore of enlightenment. The other masters at the sanctuary couldn't stop him. They said everyone had their own path. Alara listened, not fully understanding, knowing only that the guardian was a very powerful person who had saved many people. The conversation naturally shifted to two other names. The tea stall owner, wiping a clay bowl, remarked that besides the guardian, the ones who had done the most were Blade Master Corbin and the revered Caleb. An old man sighed that at the final moment, the revered Caleb had sacrificed himself, using his own life force to mend the cracks in the world. And Blade Master Corbin, in that very instant, had broken through to the ultimate truth and ascended on the spot. They said the sight was magnificent, with celestial music and light that could be seen for 1,000 miles. A teacher and his student, one saving the world, the other achieving godhood. Both were extraordinary. Such individuals, the old man lamented, were a rarity seen only once in 1,000 years. A younger cultivator nearby couldn't help but chime in with a smile. In that case, he said, it was a truly epic tale. The bond of a master and apprentice, the camaraderie of two on the same path, saving the world together and achieving enlightenment together. In the history books and legends of their world, the names of Blade Master Corbin and the revered Caleb would surely be forever intertwined, never to be separated. Alara held the bowl of sweet porridge her brother had bought her, taking small sips. The warmth temporarily chased away the darkness in her heart. She didn't understand the profound principles or the epic tales. She only knew that being alive, drinking sweet porridge, listening to stories of heroes, and watching the world become lively again felt good.